Hi everyone. WW Shipping, Ash Shamrock. Gox, mommy.
No, I'm telling Dad to wear.
Okay. Hey Dan, how are you? Denzel. That's me. Mish, Sophia. Don't know who is on. Oh. How do I do this thing? Oh, swipe left to close. Okay. Carlito. Hi. Welcome. I am doing good. How are you doing, Sammy? Oh, let me share the live. I don't think I did that part. I'm always bad with sharing the live. Okay. Nice. Did anything fun today? Hi. I don't know who is in the chat. I know Dan is here. See 5 persons online. Can you just say hi and where you're joining in from? Oh, you work today. Okay, cool. Nice. I'm actually off as usual on a weekend. So that's the good thing about my job nowadays. How do I share this thing again? All right, share. So I'm gonna share to a few persons here and hopefully they'll join. Okay. All right, so I do hope you guys' weekend is going well so far. Nikia, welcome. How is the weather? I know some persons are in Canada and it's still a little bit cold. Hi, Clevon Belifanti. How are you? Conroy, welcome. Yeah, the weather wasn't bad today. It was 100 and something. Well, only probably one day on Thursday. Probably was 101, but today wasn't that bad. It was a little bit cool. I think it was in the 90s though. So yeah, I am doing well. Fire is here. That's one of my classmates from primary school. Thank you for liking up the live. All right, remember to go ahead and share the live as well. Oh, I never put any, I can't remember that part. So we'll try to see if we can get at least 5,000 hearts today or tonight before I go. All right. So how is your day going, Fire? Are you at work, home, school, play? Hi, Lily, A&S Cleaning. Welcome. All right, so I know I've been talking a few, which one of the phone going on? I've been having a few live and a few persons have been inboxing me, so I'm gonna answer some of the questions tonight, or my thoughts on some of the things that they've been asking. And I notice. All right, I remember I'm not a transitional specialist. I'm just talking based on my own experience as a nurse here in the States, or transition from Jamaica to the States here. You can see that I'm glowing tonight. Thank you. Well, I don't know what's different tonight, but yeah. But how are you doing, Conroy? And where are you joining from? All right. Oh my word. Thank you for all of that like so far. All right. Oh, you're just chilling. Okay. Are you from Jamaica? Oh, cool. Okay. So you're not enjoying a Saturday night, I didn't call it flex party or anything like that. Okay. All right, so there is a few questions a few persons have been asking, and I'm gonna try to answer those. So the most recent is, okay, the most recent one. So one was asking about sign-on bonus and what my thoughts are on that as a nurse. And I was sharing my experience, you know, after I'd completed my contract as a, let's say, you know, my first contract here in the States. Okay. So I was saying that when I first completed my first contract in the States here, after, you know, leaving that recruiting company, and I had signed on with the hospital as a full-time nurse. I was looking at job out of state, and a lot of companies were offering sign-on bonuses or relocation packages. And some of the relocation packages were very, very high in terms of they were offering anywhere between $15,000 and $18,000. And that was in 2016. There was one company that was offering anything between $1,500 and $2,500. And for me, I never really know much about the relocation packages or what they were, you know, like how, you know, in terms of the bonding or the contracts or the payback period with those. And so I was a little bit hesitant about it. So I did look it up a bit, and realized that one of the companies that was offering the $18,000 sign-on bonus at that time, they never really had good ratings. And in terms of retention, you're talking about Magna, what do you call it again? Is Magna, the Magna status, you know, in terms of retention of staff and all, it wasn't something that, you know, had a lot of reviews. And so I was just thinking that, you know, that's one of the reasons why they are offering so much money in terms of for new nurses to sign on, because they want something to kind of keep you tied in with the company. And that was just it. So I never chose that company. I did sign on with one that was like, you know, $2,500 for their relocation bonus. And I think it was like around 2 years you were going to be bonded with that company. And then if you decide to leave before the 2 years, then it is expected that you go ahead and pay back that money. So that was just it. Hi. Oh, I think these persons are gone as they're part of a live currently. Okay. So yeah, so I never signed on with that company. I didn't take a contract with that company. And then when I finally start working with that company that was giving out, you know, that bonus, all of that bonus, it wasn't one of my favorite company. And that's one of my companies that I say I'm not going to be working with, because it was pretty unsafe. You know, they wanted me to be doing things that, you know, let's just say it wasn't ethical. And so I was like, no, I'm not going to go back to that company. And so I understood why they were doing it, because I think they're having like sign-on bonuses now for like $30,000. Yeah, I don't know who would want to sign on for $30,000, you know, and get tied up in something that, you know, I think you have the option of, you know, making payment plans. Don't know how long the payment plans are, but I know with the first company, they had said that it was roughly 1 month. So if you decide to send in your resignation today, then they need the remainder of the relocation bonus at the time when you're leaving. So I don't know if it is different with different companies, but someone was asking about that. I don't think they have signed on as yet with any company, but that was just it. And so she was making reference to a sign-on bonus for $15,000 with one of the company, and she wanted to find out, you know, if that was a goal in terms of acceptance. And I was like, it's, you know, it's always going to be dependent on you. And as I say, reviews are something that I definitely always go by, because most of the time persons are not going to give their, you know, if you're happy about something, a lot of times we don't really find the time to write about it. We always go ahead and write all the negative reviews or bad experience. So I did ask her to just go ahead and look at the company's, like, website, hear what the nurses are saying, what patients are saying, and then from there. And it didn't sound like, she was pleased with the reviews that she was seeing. So I don't know. But as I say, not all the time the reviews are going to be there and it is a true, reflection of the company. But sometimes, you can use it as a guide as to making certain decision about a facility, especially when you're new. You understand? Because most of the hospitals here, you'll realize that their reviews are going to be anywhere between probably like 1 and 3. Hardly find any hospital that is like 4 to 5 in terms of their ratings. And that's because you don't have persons who are really happy with the service, the care that they're getting at a facility, doing reviews like that. It's only whenever, you waited too long, you never get a certain, kind of treatment or the medications, then definitely you say, when that paper come, you're going to sign it. So, or do the review. But otherwise, you hardly find people doing all of those things. Hi, Deidre. Deidre Forbes. Welcome to the live. I hope you guys are doing well. Conrad says, no, went to work today. I'm feeling a little bit better, but tired. Okay. I'm sorry. Well, you need to get some rest then. Howard Ellis, welcome. Thank you for the follow. All right. So, yeah. And you're just chilling. And you can always go ahead and ask me any question in the chat as well. If anything pops up. Nursing related, almost nursing related, definitely go ahead and share it and I'll try to answer it as best as possible. David Morris, welcome as well. All right. And then one person was asking about, let me look at that. Another person was asking about, breaking the contract and whether or not I had completed my contract at the time when I moved here to the state. And as I say, I did complete my contract, even though there was like a 50, I had about 50 hours that I needed to finish up. But I never completed it because of issues with the facility. And I had reached out to my company and they were okay with that. So they never used it against me. All right. So technically, yes, I did complete my contract. And in terms of, when it comes onto your contract, I always say just treat it like a marriage. And especially with the fact that, depending on the type of visa that you're coming on, a lot of times if you had probably gone to do your regular application, they wouldn't have approved it. But you're coming up on a employment-based visa. So you have to take into consideration that at the time when you have signed your contract, and make sure that you read the fine prints and you stay, with the company up until the time of, completing your contract, because you don't want it to be a case where you break the contract before time and then it becomes an issue later on with the immigration. All right, because that's the basis of you coming into the States. So I was kind of just reviewing something online regarding that. I think it's on this phone. Let me look that up again because I did save it. Regarding that. Oh, I think it's on that other phone. It's on the phone that I'm using. Yeah, but it's regarding the same employment-based visa. Let me try chat and see. And they have a little bit of information regarding that, and you can also look it up because chat is pretty good. The information might not always be what you're looking for, but it gives an idea regarding certain things. So EBV3 and immigration. If you cancel the contract, yeah. So what it says here is that, hi Patrick, thank you for tuning in. So I was looking on the EB3 because that's the one I came on. So it's an employment-based visa, and it says that, you know, canceling your contract early can have serious immigration consequences depending on your situation. And this is not anything regarding immigration as well. So if you need any questions answered by an immigration specialist, you would have to find one. All right, this is just information through chat, and just how I feel about the visa that I came up with. All right. So, as I say, canceling your contract early can have serious immigration consequences depending on your situation. And we all know that. All right. And we know that we're coming up here to work. So, the whole sponsorship is because of that. So, it says, if you leave before completing your contract, remember, many EB3 visas are tied to an employer's sponsorship, especially for nurses, caregivers, and skilled or unskilled workers. If you break the employment contract early, your sponsoring employer can withdraw your petition or notify USCIS or the Department of State that you are no longer working for them. This can put your green card's process at risk if you haven't already received your permanent resident card. All right. And as I say, when I went in to do my interview, like the people them already know a bunch of things. You know, when I finished my contract, all of those things without even asking me much questions. So they will ask, like, you know, when I started my the second job, all of those things they were asking, and I'm like, oh my word, can you imagine all of those other persons who have break their contract, you know, what they're going through. It says that if you've already gotten your green card, if it was approved recently and you leave very soon after, USCIS could view it as a possible fraud that you never intended to work long-term for the sponsor. While there's no fixed minimum stay requirement or rule, most immigration lawyers recommend 6 to 12 months of work to show good faith. If you leave before that, you could have problems with future immigration petitions, citizenship petitions for relatives, being accused of misrepresentation if it looks like you never intended to fulfill the job commitment. Then it says if you're still on temporary visa, such as like, you know, the H-1B, before your green card approval, leaving means you lose your work authorization from that employer and must transfer to a new employer, as in they'd have to put in a new petition, or you'd have to leave the US before you fall out of status. And one thing you have to think about is that if, so for example, one company already see, because a lot of times when you're doing your application, you will realize you're reading a question that is saying, or a statement that is saying if this employment is going to lead, or you're looking for basically sponsorship. And then from there, I guess if you click yes, then there's going to be additional things like if you've been with another company before and all of those things. All right, so that will kind of jeopardize the opportunity for you to actually get sponsored by another company as well. And then you have to look at the contractual consequences. Employers often have repayment clauses for recruitment, relocation, or legal fees if you leave early. You could be sued for breach of contract, especially if there is liquidated damages clause. And that's what I was saying. When I did my contract, I did read it through, and there was, you know, I think it was almost like probably like $30,000-$40,000 in terms of the repayment. And I was looking at it and be like, oh my word. But then when you look at all the different things that they're talking about in terms of, you know, the time that they spend with you studying for your NCLEX or prepping you for your NCLEX, all of those things are what they're looking into. So you just have to be mindful of that. And when you're signing your contract, you know exactly what the repayment, you know, amount is gonna be and how soon you definitely need to repay it. Because I think it was, even though it was there, I think it was like less than 6 months or something like that. I don't know if they've changed it, but you know, I think it was less than 6 months. So the bottom line is, if you haven't gotten your green card yet, breaking the contract can end your immigration process. If you just got your green card, leaving too early can raise red flags for fraud in the future applications. And if you've had green card for a while, usually over 1 year, then it says here less risk, but the contract breach could still possibly cost you financially. All right, because remember, all of these companies, you know, when you apply with them or when you sign up with them, they already have your information regarding your green card, because everything comes through them. Because basically, let's just say in a sense, them own you. You understand? They sponsor you. They're responsible for you when you get here. So they have everything at their fingertip. Your social security, your green card, everything. You understand? So that's it. And then you have to remember that when you well, at my company that I was working with, once I completed my contract hours, I did got a certification to say that I've completed my contract. You understand? So you get a certification at the time when you have completed the first part of the contract, and then at the second part they go ahead and send you over some information as well. So you would get something to say, okay, then if anybody asks you, did you complete your contract with this recruiting company, you have something that is signed and stamped to say you basically graduated. Yeah, man, you're free and you can go about and do your own thing. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in. Nelly Mash, Sean V, asking which company that Avant, that's the company I came up with. All right, Abby Nelson, thank you so much for tuning in. Naja or Nana. All right, yeah, so just take into consideration all of those things regarding that. But you don't want to break your contract any at all. As I say, a lot of times the situations might not be perfect, and as I say, when you come over here, you'll realize that you're not making much money. But just look the other way. You understand? It's only going to be for 2 years, 2.5 years for some persons. You're still able to do your overtime, and depending on your contract or the company that you're with, if you're able to do your overtime and finish your contract in a timely manner, then that's something you can always maximize on. Just don't work yourself to death. All right. And if it's not a case where your company is allowing for overtime to go towards your full hours, still go ahead and work your overtime and make your money. You understand? So whichever contract you're on, just try to make sure you fulfill your obligations with that, because the last thing you want is to have, to be paying back $30,000, $50,000 back to a recruiting company who basically was doing it for you for free, where you pay them back overtime. So if that's something you're able to do, then do it and go from there. All right. All right. Do you have any other questions? Sean V, are you a nurse and where you're from? Doreen Hamilton, thank you for tuning in. And at the time when I did got my, my green card, so the company, well, I guess most companies, well, no, because I know some persons were over here from other countries. Yeah. All right. But for the EBV, approval, how long that had taken me, so I did sign up with the company in I think it was I think the entire process took about a year and a half, and I know a lot of persons are saying that they haven't gotten any dates or anything, they haven't been getting any updates, and I think it's probably just because a lot of hospitals are staffed right now, let's just say, and even if there are staff in those major cities, then you have persons who are still doing travel contracts, and a lot of the rural communities are needing staff. So now these, nurses who are doing traveling are probably going to those country areas to do all of these contracts. So it might slow down the whole process for nurses to get jobs from overseas, and in terms of, immigration, probably holding back on releasing some of those visas, because they probably realize that they have enough staff, even though they don't have enough staff. That's just my thinking regarding that. All right. Yeah. So with the approval, I think it was, I don't really know. But if you realize, so for example, at the time when I was doing my application, they would say, let's just say it's probably, let's say 10 months, they said, and I've been waiting, tracking the application. And especially if you know persons who are doing the same kind of application or the process with you, you can always just make sure that you guys are corresponding and having an idea whether or not there is something that is missing that is causing your application to not be progressing. And so at the time I was just always curious, so I was kind of always that same number that you get on the DS260, the DS260 form. You can always go onto USCIS and put in that information there, and you will realize that you will get information regarding your application. And if there is any issues with it, I went ahead and called. So my company never even knew at the time that there was an issue with something on the account. You understand? They were waiting for USCIS and I was waiting for the company. But if I never put in that information just to find out what was happening, there was something that was missing that the company, the recruiting company, needed to send over. And they never knew. I don't know where the information got, slipped, but they weren't aware of that. And so because I had called USCIS, spoke with someone, tried to find out why is there a hold up on the application, they were still able to give me information even though I wasn't the lawyer. You understand? So they were still able to give me information because I'm the applicant, and that's how I reached out to the company. So if you realize it's taking a little bit longer than usual, then definitely just go ahead, put in the DS260 number, because that application number is going to be the number that is going to, go with you until you get your citizenship. So that number that you have on your application, just go online, type in USCIS. You can even type in and just try to find out what the number is. But you'll realize if it says put in this number, put it in, it will prompt you and you'll just go ahead, follow the instructions and do your thing and get information. So that way, it's not taking longer than usual, because sometimes they might be just waiting on something very, very simple. And just remember, they're dealing with tons of, persons, and then your company is dealing with tons of persons. So just take it, you want to come to America or you want to go wherever, just make it your responsibility to call that, the embassy or the USCIS or wherever, just to make sure you're on top of things with everything. All right. This is just for RNs, right? Child of God, hold on. No, you can join in. You can join in. All right. Yeah, you can join in and ask any question. I'm working as a nurse practitioner, so I have a few information on that if you're interested as well. All right, so you can stop by and listen. All right. Yeah. So that's that on that part. Any question? Any other question? Hi, Jackie. Thank you so much for tuning in. Oh, guys, remember to go ahead and like up the live. Let's see if we can go up to what? 2,000. Hi, Anthony. Let's see if we can go to 2,000 likes. Yeah, let the little hearts come up on my screen so I can feel like, I'm doing a good job. How are you, Jackie? And how is your weekend going? Suzette Reed, thank you so much for tuning in. All right. All right. Okay, you are at the Caribana long weekend. Okay, nice. I saw somebody else had posted something regarding that. Seems like fun. Are you wearing any costume or anything? Yeah. Okay. And then there was one person who was, thank you for those likes. Thank you. Then there was somebody on the live the other night, just in case you're here, and we're seeing that we're on the whole immigration. No, just enjoying the nice weather out. Okay, nice. Someone was talking about, the fact that the recruiting company is paying for the family's, application for filing. And no, most of the recruiting companies, they only go ahead and pay for you, the person who they're filing for, like, who they're sponsoring for work. So you're the nurse, they're only going to be responsible for you. So in terms of the DS260 form, they will pay for that. But if you have children, your husband, wife coming up with you, then it's your responsibility to pay that money, you know, and send them the receipt, and they will go ahead and do all of those things for you. The medical exam as well, the visa fee, all of those are your responsibility for each person. All right, that is coming up. So you still have to go ahead and make sure you plan ahead of time. I don't remember, I think at the time when I was doing my application, I think they only accepted, I don't know if it has changed, but I think they only accepted like a bank account. I don't think they did the credit card. I think there was some issues with that. Yeah. So it has to be where you put in your routing number and the banking, you know, your account number. If it has changed, you let me know. But I don't think you can use your credit card to make any payments, because I remember at the time when I was doing my citizenship as well, it was the same thing. All right, so bear in mind that it has to be paid through your bank account, not through using a credit card. All right, and as I say, all of those costs is your responsibility. All right, and then the cost was what, around $325. I think this is the same price I had paid, $325 for the DS260 that you pay out of pocket. And at the time, the company did pay for airfare for me. As I say, everything you pay, you don't pay anything upfront, all right, with the company. So that is one thing you definitely want to find out from your recruiting company. What is it that you're going to be responsible for in terms of your expenses? Find out about your exam, if that's something that they're going to be covering, accommodations, traveling, all of those things. To come and do my NCLEX, they covered all of those costs. So once you sign a contract, they basically take care of me for the entire time. You understand? I never had any issues with them. And that was just it. So find out from them if you're going to be responsible for your airfare and for accommodations. All right. I don't see my friend on here. I sent her a link. Hi. So this is, okay, so I'm a caregiver in Jamaica. Is there any opportunities in that area for Jamaicans in this field? So the thing about it is that if you realize, a lot of times, you know, companies are looking for anyone that has a bachelor's degree or, you know, an advanced degree, just because most companies are more willing to do those kind of sponsorship. And when I was looking online, it was the same thing regarding the fact that, you know, in terms of the level of education and I guess it's just, you know, the in terms of the amount of money that you'll be paid, I don't really understand it, but they were looking at those two things. They were talking about those things. So they don't really do a lot of sponsorship for, you know, like LPN, CNA. You still have companies that do recruiting, but I don't know if they do the full sponsorship, just like what, you know, you'll be getting as a registered nurse or someone with a bachelor's degree. But I did look online. I never really see anything. A lot of times it was more in favor of anything with, like, you know, a bachelor's degree. So you just have to probably think about, you know, upgrading a little bit, and then try for those companies, or try to see if there are other companies out there that will offer probably the work visa or, you know, work permit, and then from there. But if you do get the opportunity to come over here and you're a caregiver, then a lot of times if you go into some of these hospitals and be working, there is the opportunity to advance your, you know, your certifications, getting your bachelor's, your master's, if that's something you're looking into as well. All right. Thank you so much, Max Ford. Thank you for tuning in, Nicole. Thank you for following. And Samantha, thank you for joining in as well. All right, so definitely look at that. Let me look at one more question. So we talk about that. Any other question? Hi, Gloria, Kari. Welcome, welcome. Let me try to pull this up. Yeah, but I just feel like, you know, if you are somebody who is out there and you're wanting to come to the States and you have the degree, I would just say go ahead and sign up with one of those agencies, because a lot of things that I know I could have probably done it, but it wouldn't be in a timely manner, because I've been here, what, how many years now? Since 2016? Probably I would have still been in Jamaica if I was doing this thing on my own. You understand? Because if you don't have somebody to push you all the time, I'm not saying you always want somebody to push you, but in terms of guiding you, especially if you don't have the necessary resources, the internet is there, but it will still confuse you in terms of when you're doing your application and everything. So if you don't have like somebody there that is helping or to do certain things on your behalf, then sometimes it can take a little bit longer, and it might not even encourage you that much. You understand? So if you have a recruiting company available, then I would say reach out to them, hear what, you know, what they're offering, and just make sure a lot of the things that I talk about, you try to have them do those things, or at least ask questions to hear if it is something that they are offering with their service. This is asking which agency. It was Avant Healthcare. Avant Healthcare I did use. All right. Are you planning on coming up, Nissy? All right. So that's just it. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Nice. What would be the basic hourly pay you think is acceptable for a new immigration nurse? So when you're talking about a new nurse, as in a new nurse to the state, or a new nurse like just new grad, or what? Because as I say, if you're coming here, I would just say if you want to, you know, get your years of service, because I actually ran into a situation where they never wanted to pay me for my years of service, then I would say just make sure you have your job offer, your initial job offer, your first job, and you have your resignation letter, just to kind of give them an idea that this is how long you've been working as a nurse internationally, and so they can actually just go ahead and use it as a part of paying you. All right. So because as I say, some places they will tell you that they don't observe your international years of experience or years of service, because I remember there was this Filipino, she had over 15 years of nursing experience, and they were only paying her for the 3 years that she was in the state. You understand? And I was saying, can't you find somebody? But a lot of times these Filipinos, when they come over, they come over here for a long time before they can actually sit their exam, you know. Yeah, man, they come over here for a long time, but the process takes a long time. Because I remember when I was, you know, in Florida at the company, and they had some Filipinos there, and I never know, so people can actually be on a contract for so long. You understand? Some of these persons, they sign contracts with a rate of like $8 in 2016, and they were on that contract for like 2 years, going 3 years in the States here, but they signed a contract from a long time. Some persons signed contract for like 10 years. I never know that people could sign on contract for so long. You understand? Then they come over here for 3 years, still not working as a nurse, because paperwork and everything still in the process of being sorted out. So, you know, it takes a long time for some persons. And as I say, the rates might seem low, but it is an opportunity for a lot of persons out there, because even though we might be complaining about $25, $29, you have some persons who their rates are a little bit lower than that, because they've signed a contract for the last 12 years with the company. But because the processing for them to get a visa approval takes forever, you understand, they just have to wait, and each year it's the same thing. So what's your personal opinion for a good hourly start for the in 2025? 2025, I would say, for a new international nurse in 2025, when I say, if you can find a company that is paying you probably $40, that would be probably, you know, okay. Yeah, and then you think about shift differential as well. Because as I said, some companies, they do pay some really nice shift differentials. So that will run you up to like $46. So, and it depends on the state. Sorry, it depends on the state. Because if you're going to go to like, you know, the colder states, sometimes they pay a little bit more. You have Texas here that pays really nice. Florida, I really know about Florida rates like that. No, them probably don't pay good. Because I always see them job offers, and yeah, the rates are not that enticing. Yeah. But California, their rates are going to be super, super high. They're like in a different, you know, category. New York is another one that is going to be very, very high. And as I said, it depends on where you're going and the cost of living there. It's going to be dependent on that. So, yeah. How about Tennessee? I'm not really so sure about Tennessee, you know. But by passing through, like, you know, places like Louisiana and Mississippi, I gotta tell us to rate them down there. So, it's not going to look good at all. I mean, I know. Yeah. Or probably the rate would be good, you know. Just because you might not have that much purses going down there. Let me just say that. Yeah, the rates are going to be probably good down that side because you don't have that much staffing down there. Let's see. Because the other day I was passing through when I was going, coming from, yeah, I was going on Google. The other day I was passing through like Louisiana, Mississippi. I mean, I tell you some man, Lord have mercy. All right, so okay. So for the national rates, hourly rate here, hourly rates for new registered nurses across the states with special focus on Louisiana and Texas. So the national for all RNs, it says $47.32. where you're averaging about 98,430 per year, according to BLS data. Louisiana says here 38.83 annual wage of 80,000. New entry nurse in Louisiana, Texas is averaging around 37 based on SIP Recruiter in 2025 of July. Texas is around $40 and entry-level nurse is $37. Typical range from 28 to 41. Top earners reach as far as $54 per hour. So you have a lot of companies that will go ahead and cap off in terms of their rates because, you know, if you're working 20, 30 years, then probably can't pay you. So they have to cut it off at somewhere. I think in Maine at one point, I know there was this lady, I think she was almost at, I think around almost like say 55. I don't remember if that's where they, you know, they cap her thing at. But when she was doing overtime, it was almost like $100 hour. Like, you know, so yeah, they kind of cap off at some numbers in the 50s thereabouts. All right. But as I say, the average is like $47. This is a national. Texas is 40, Louisiana 38. Let's see, Florida. I remember a lot of these places you do pay your state taxes and everything. So Florida is, it says here, hourly wage for new or entry-level nurse in Florida is around $28.86, with most earning ranges from 22 to 32. Top earners reach up to 42 an hour. All right, and it says level 1 RN in Florida is approximately 34 per hour, which is broader than the new nurse category. So I don't know. And then there is another one here that says 38. So the entry level is like 28, level 1 RN 34, all nurses 38 to 42. So as I say, it depends on where you're going at. All right, and how much money do you think is good enough to take you when you're leaving? So I would say, try for 10. If you can try for 10, that is probably okay based on certain things. And it depends if you haven't gotten a job as yet. If you haven't gotten a job as yet, that is just something you'd have to take into consideration, because that money is in the event where, so for example, you haven't started working, at least you still can pay your rent and everything. But 7,500 to 10 shouldn't be a bad. you know, especially if you're gonna be, if you're not gonna be one of those persons that is gonna be spending a lot of money, that is still gonna be a lot of money for you. You understand? Because you're thinking about rent, which probably will be anywhere between, depending on where you're going and what you're looking for. Let's just say about $1,000 to $2,000, or you know, especially if you have kids, you'll be looking at that, and you're looking at your car note. So probably, let's say if you're single, you're looking probably like at a 1-bedroom. So let's just say your first paycheck probably cover rent and probably your car note, and your last paycheck cover all the other, you know, expenses that you have working the 40 hours, the 36 to 40 hours per week. So I'm just thinking that you probably, yeah, if you have $10,000, I think that's pretty reasonable, and you'll still have money, you know, there in the event that, so for example, you haven't been paid, or there's something going on with your, you know, your pay. Virginia, let me see what they say here for Virginia. Yeah, but as I say, you know, if you come, once you come up here, you're not planning on starting out big. You understand? Unless you come up here and start buy a Porsche, you want to buy a Porsche, you want to go live in a castle or something like that, then, you know, you're probably going to have to come with a lot of money. But if you're going to come and just say, you know, start out very simple, you just get a bed, and you get your car, and things that are most important. You get your health insurances, you know, your life insurances, all of those things sorted out. You cover all of those expenses. And then from there, you can survive after. If you're going to just look at that, then you should be fine with even $5,000, honestly, depending on, as I say, if you've gotten a job, your rates and everything. It's not that bad. All right. You're welcome. You're welcome. Blessed Kia, welcome. Reshma, thank you so much for tuning in. Phelan, thank you for tuning in. All right, and I did posted. I haven't posted it as yet on. No, I did posted the live. I did a live the other day. I did post it on YT at ThinkNursing. So go over to that page and just look at that video. And it has a lot of questions and answers that persons were asking on the live. So go ahead and just watch the video. It's 2 hours, but it's just a chit chat, questions and answer. Just the same. When you get a chance, you can go over there and just listen to it. You understand? There are so many tips that I did give on regarding housing, insurance, and all. Karine Roberts is saying, which state I work in? I'm currently in Texas, but I never did my contract as a RN here in the state of Texas. I was actually in the state of Maine. Yeah, in the state of Maine. All right. Talk the truth. Talk truth. Edits. Hi. Oh, talk truth edits. Okay. How are you doing? Oh, Virginia. Traveler. I like you. Well, I don't know if it's yeah. Let me look on this one. Let me look up this one. So Virginia. Okay, so let me see. The rates I have here, I see here. So it says here for the entry level, I don't know, but this says for entry level nurses. Hold on there. Unless I never put this properly. Let's see, new grad. Graduate. Maryland pays well. Yes. Yes, I hear about that. All right. So for new graduates for Virginia, I'm seeing where it says for ZipRecruiter, they have 29, 46. Salary.com is saying new graduate is at 36 per hour. Glassdoor is saying 45, roughly thereabouts. So I really don't know, but I'm seeing here anywhere between 36 and well, they have one here that says ZipRecruiter is saying 29. So anywhere between 29 and 53, and it depends on your location and your employer. You understand? And I had a friend down that side, but I don't know if it was related to his years as well in Jamaica. But he had said that his rates weren't bad. He was in ICU as well. So these are not bad rates, you understand? But as I say, if you're gonna be coming over here and I'm gonna say, let's say 1.5 years in Jamaica, and then you spend 3 years on your contract there, then 40, anywhere like 35, 40 is not so bad. 35, 40 is not so bad, or 38, 40 is not so bad, plus shift differentials. And so some companies will pay shift differentials like $6 extra, so just add that, you understand? And if it is like you get shift differentials for like if you're working like the 7 to 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I think it's from I think they have one from you get something from like 11, I think it's 11 to 7 as well. If you're doing that kind of shift, you get something like that. And you also get differentials for weekends. You get holiday pay as well. You have time and a half. So all of those things will count towards, a little bit more for you. Deja, how are you doing? It's been a while. Okay, Ricky says, and if you pick up, they pay bonus. Yes, if you pick up, you pay bonus. But you have to be careful sometimes with some of these bonus, because the people then pay you some big bonus, and then a tax will take out all it out of your pocket. You understand? And sometimes when they say they're giving you a gift, yeah, man. When they say they're giving you a gift, tax is on that as well, because it's like they cut it in half. You understand? So if they say they're paying you $500, only $200, you get really and truly, because they take so much in taxes. So when I look at it and I was calculating it at one point, I realized it never really made no sense, because when they're paying you so much money, for bonus, it never made no sense to work over 4 days. Because when I work 5 days, or if I decide to go and work 6 days, it's almost the same as what I'm getting for 4 days. So I just cut it off at 4 days, and it depends on the rates that they're giving you. You understand? So you have to look at that. So try it out, and then you sit down and do the maths and see how it works out in your favor and if it makes sense. But sometimes I never really feel like if I work a 5th day, it make much sense for me. Okay, nice. I'm doing good, Deja. I'm doing good. Was migrating worth it? Definitely. So as I say, it depends on why you want to leave your country. Everybody gonna have their own little personal reason. Don't let it be a case where you see a friend decide that they're gonna come over here and you just feel like you want to come with them. No, if you have a goal in mind and if you have plans for this whole the opportunity that you're getting, then at the end of the day, it will be worth it for you. You understand? So if you know that you have student loan and you don't want anybody to capture the people them land because you have people tie up in your student loan and you don't want the embarrassment, and you come over here, you pay them off, then that's a plus. It is worth it for you. You understand? But if you're going to come over here and everything is going to go the opposite of what you intended for it to be, then, no make no sense. But definitely, you get a lot of skills. In Jamaica, I wouldn't have gotten certain skills done. The opportunities that I got here, I wouldn't have gotten them in Jamaica. You understand? And so I look at it and say, definitely. Hopefully, I'll be able to take some of these skills back to Jamaica and do my thing down there with my people them. Because at the end of the day, I still want to give back to my country. Do you know the pathway for a midwife? Okay. Are you currently working as a midwife in Jamaica? because I know I had a friend who was working as a midwife. She was trained. Government had sent her to do the midwifery program, and so she signed up and got here. But she's not working as a midwife because you have most of the nurse practitioners doing that role. So she actually is working on the labor and delivery floor as, like, you know, what you'd say consider like a regular nurse. Sometimes, you know, depending on where she was at the time, then it's a case where they might have, you know, she might have assisted in the capacity of a midwife, but it's not what she is doing. But sometimes they never really had any staff and she has to assist with that. But because she has her certifications, they allowed her to do it. But on paper, you know, that kind of way, you're not going to really say you're working in the capacity of a midwife. But she was able to assist with certain things that are not that technical, even though in Jamaica, she's a midwife and she would have been able to do it without any issues. So I know you have to go and do like your advanced, you know, your advanced nurse practitioner program or your advanced role to work in that capacity as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. So okay, you're in Trinidad. Okay. Yes, that's just it. So if you're gonna be wanting to continue as a midwife, you just have to advance and do the midwifery program, and then from there. And that's as far as I am thinking. Okay. Yeah, so most of these, like when I got here, my emergency room program from Jamaica, the certification, they never recognize it, you know, so you have to still go ahead and do their emergency room certification here. And then from there. Hi, Crazy K, how are you doing? Carrie, too cute. Thank you so much for tuning in. Antoinette, DJ Gring. Where some of us get our names from? Does that confuse me? God bless. Thank you so much for following. Empress Chanty, welcome. All right, so basically that's that. How are you, Empress? All right, so okay, nice. No party tonight? Why may I say no party? No party tonight? I am good, you know, I'm good. It's been a pretty, no party ever. You sound boring like me, so, you sound boring just like me. Yeah, no party for me either. I've been to how many parties? A birthday party? Yeah, I've been to birthday parties, but no real party like that, you know. Yeah. All right, so yeah, I wanted to talk. So let me tell you, some of the certifications, if you can get them from, you know, before coming here, that will be a plus. All right, BLS is BLS, ACLS is ACLS. So like your BLS PALS, your ACLS, ENPC, and we don't do TNCC in the Caribbean if you're from the Caribbean and you're in emergency. But, you know, when you get here, most of the time, a lot of hospitals are going to want you to do that one, the ENPC and not the ENPC, the TNCC for trauma nurses. So you can always go ahead and look that up. And the good thing about it is that you'll get, you know, it's a very big book. You'll have to go through it, read the textbook, and, you know, try to answer some of the questions. And once you understand it, then that's good. For persons who have done, like, you know, the CEN program or any form of certification in your country, and you're working as like a CEN, you're working as a pediatric nurse, when you get here, it's going to be very, very beneficial for you. So even though in some places you might not be using all of those skills, trust me, it's going to be worth it. It is going to be worth it. All right, so if you're still able to go ahead and do them, then that's a plus. All right, but you might have to do over the program here when you get here. All right, so that's just it. But definitely look into that. All right. Hi, Lynn Roy. Thank you so much for tuning in. How are you doing? In terms of like, you know, when it comes on to your skills, someone was asking the other day, what are some of the things that I, you know, would have wanted them to start working on as a nurse prior to coming to the States here. And I was saying one of the things you definitely want to work on is like your time management. Communication is another one. You also want to work on your actual skills, hands-on, especially IVs. So if you're not comfortable with blood draw, you know, IV cannulations, those are things that I would highly encourage persons to start working on, because when you get here, especially the IVs, it's gonna really help you a lot. You understand? It's really gonna help you when it comes on to your patients, because a lot of times, you know, you might have to call a rapid response or something like that. A lot of times nurses on the floor would be calling rapid response because some of them, and it depends on the facility as well, but as soon as the patient is out of IV, then that's the case. You know, they always call for an for rapid response, or they call the emergency room to find out if somebody can come up there and do an IV. So if you're able to do that kind of skill, you'll realize it will save you a lot of times on the floor, because especially if the emergency room or the resource nurses are busy, it might take a while before you get an IV, you know, going. And if your rapid response team is tied up in another, you know, case or something, you don't want to be waiting forever before they come over to get your IV started. So definitely that is something I would highly encourage all the nurses out there, you know, whether not transitioning to the States or you're in your own country. I would just say be proficient, or at least start attempting how to do your IVs, your blood draw, because it's very important, all right, when it comes on to you and your patient. Medication wise in the Caribbean, I'm going to talk from my experience in Jamaica. A lot of the medications down there that we use, you might not find a lot of them here, because, you know, there's so many medications. But, you know, the good thing about it is that you have the computer that is going to be helping with, you know, making sure that you're given the right medication, let's just say. So even though you're probably not all the time familiar with the medication, it's your responsibility to go ahead and read on some of these medications. The computer is there where you have information regarding the drug, and it kind of gives you, like, you know, important things that you definitely want to talk to the patient regarding. So you can always look at that. And it's important for you to make sure you're scanning. You understand? So even though a lot of times we might be in a rush, if you don't know the medication, slow down and double check it, triple check it, find a nurse, and, you know, make sure the medication is the right medication that you want. So you'll find out that there are so many different medications here. Not all the time all the patients are on the same medications, especially if you're working on the floor. Not all the time they're getting the same lisinopril and enalapril, metformin. No. Even though they're hypertensive, there's so many different medications out there that different doctors are going to be ordering, confusing you and the patient. And it's your responsibility to just make sure you're scanning the medications. If you're able to scan, a lot of times you will find out that, you know, some of the errors, you will be able to pick up on them before the patient even get the medication. So start reading on your medications a little bit more. And from there, my recruiting company did give me a medication pharmacology book, and that one had a lot of like the newer drugs that a lot of the companies here do use, or the hospitals do use. So you can always look at that if your company do provide you with one. But you have the regular medication dictionary. Yeah, man, you can still use that one. You might not find that on in every hospital. I think it was only one hospital I remember seeing one of those on the crash cart, and I was like, oh wow, that was it. We never see no more again. You understand? If student nurses don't walk with a medication dictionary, that's how bad it is. Everybody just walking with the little phone. Yeah. All right. No, you're not. You're here. How are you, Adriana? But yeah, in terms of the medication, you know, just always go ahead and double check them, triple check them. When it comes onto your crash carts, you have, you know, because everywhere you go, you're going to have different dosages. Facilities have their own. So you have to make sure you're going according to policies and the protocols. So you will find out that some of the critical drugs, depending on the floor you're working on. Some companies will go ahead, or hospitals will definitely go ahead and put those medications in a binder, or you'll have a policy or something with all the medications that you can always have as a quick reference. So it's always good when you start orientation to just find out, because as I say, not all the time, whatever dosage, or the medications that you are accustomed to is going to be the same, the dosages and everything, everywhere is going to be a little bit different with how they go about with doing certain things. So definitely go ahead and find out that on day one, so that way you'll have it as a reference, where it is located. So if in the event that you're in charge of medication, you can always go ahead and scan through. And what I always say is that if you know that you're definitely not good at medication, especially in your emergencies, or if you know that you're not good with the defibrillator, say it. You understand? Because they don't want you to say, okay, then you're going to do something, you're going to cardiovert a patient, and you're clueless as to what you're going to be doing. That's the last thing you want to do in a code. You understand? So if you know you're not comfortable with certain things, if you know you're the kind of person that is going to be hands-on, or you're good with IVs, you're good with suctioning, you're good with documenting, then definitely go ahead and do that. What else? Yeah. So basically, definitely do all of that if that's the kind of person you are. If, so for example, that patient is yours, I don't know how many nurses will do that or is doing that, but if the patient is gonna be my patient, meaning that's the time I use the my word, because all the time I'm like, it's our patient. But at the end of the day, it's your responsibility. You're the one that is assigned to the patient. If you're going to be that person, then I always say go ahead and do the documentation as best as possible, because at least you have an idea of, what to document and all. And some persons just chart the bare minimum. You might be like one of those persons who charts a lot. So you want to definitely capture everything that is possible during that code. You don't want to miss anything. You understand? So definitely do that. All right. Tamara Rivia, how are you? Okay, welcome. Shireen Faircloth, welcome. Rosalind Amaya, Alicat, welcome. Earned it, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Colette, Diane, how are you all doing? All right, yeah, thank you so much for the likes, people. Let's try to get the live up to 5,000, and we'll try to share at least to one person. We're not that greedy, just one person. All right. And as I say, you can always go ahead and leave any questions down below, and I'll try to answer them as best as possible. All right, and then from there, well, otherwise I will continue with talking if you don't type any questions there for me. All right. So definitely look at those. Hi, Carms. Thank you for the rose. Pauline, hello. Stacy D, welcome. Jabi, welcome. And thank you so much for tuning in. All right. All right, and then the other thing, as I said before in the live, is that when you get here, there is always going to be a lot of confusion regarding your accent. You understand? There's always going to be a lot of confusion with your accent. You're going to be asked to repeat a lot of things. What else? Yeah, people might just be lost in your words. They're not listening. They're not actively listening, So definitely make sure that you're starting to practice active listening. You are communicating well in general. That's it. Just make sure you're communicating well. If you don't know something, always go ahead and ask those questions, and just make sure that you're clearly documenting as you go along. All right. So if the doctor says this, make sure you're documenting. And as I say, it depends on the situation at the time. It's always good to document a name if possible. Otherwise, I keep it as nurse and doctor. But if there is something that I know that is going to be causing a problem later on, I'm going to put a name there, because that's the only way I'm going to be remembering. And one thing that I do is I always have my book. I have a boat that I walk with. So, you know, problem patients, quote unquote, let's just say in terms of the fact that something did happen, you probably reported it to your charge nurse, you can always just document it. You understand? So that way you have it for your reference. And even when me leave in the hospital, me I print them out. Print it and just have it in your little binder because they can always find you whenever it's time for any issue. So if you realize you're in any situation like that, just go ahead and document, print out, you know, file a complaint, print out and save it for future reference. That's all. All right. Nurse Library, thank you so much for tuning in. Okay. And one more thing I want to talk about is, anyone has any questions or anything you want to touch on? Jermaine Murray, welcome. All right. Oh, you know what? You see, what we need to work on as well is stress management. Yeah, man, or self-care. Because a lot of times, you know, as nurses, we don't focus on it, or not until you get to the States here, you really know much about self-care. Because you might be working and you're just going about doing your own thing, and it just seems okay, life is just okay, you're dealing with everything. But when you come over here, America will stress you out, you understand? Work will stress you out, because after a while it becomes something like you're just working, sleeping, going back to work, sleeping, and the same thing over and over. So one thing you have to start doing is start working on self-care. You understand? Start work on self-care, because that will kind of keep you together and help with preventing you from reaching that phase where you burn out. You understand? So make sure you're doing that. So start put things in place as to if whether or not you're gonna go to the gym, you're gonna start doing long walks. If it's a case where you're gonna go to the spa, go and get your back rubbed down and your foot rubbed down, whatever it is. If you're gonna dedicate one day out of the week, you know, for movie nights or game nights, whatever it is, find the time and start focus on that. Because as I say, a lot of times you will come to work and you might hear that they're giving away bonus, and when it's the time for your off day, you take your off day and go and work. No, don't let it be a case like that. So, you know, start thinking about how you're gonna be preserving yourself for your future, or for your husband, or your wife or your children, because you might find yourself just working and just burning out. You understand? So make sure we focus on that. Because as me say, when I was working in Jamaica, yes, work did hard, but me nobody feel as though, you know, I was tired and exhausted all the time, and I'm in the work. So even though we did short staff and we never really have all the resources to take care of the patients, no, we were actually overworked in Jamaica. You understand? But when you get here in the States, you will realize that the resources are here, and no, you're going to overwork. You understand? Because even though sometimes you might have just 4 patients, you might just have 4 patients dealing with, you might find out that the 4 patients coming like 40 patients you're dealing with. Because there's so much things that you have to do, plus the knee and the back rub, the foot rub, belly rub, you know, and the pat on the shoulder and all of them things. There is a lot of work you're going to have to do. A lot of responsibility. So find the time, because it's gonna be a lot. You understand? It's gonna be a lot. So how can I get CNA revision materials? Please help out. You know that you know the other day I had somebody who was doing this. It wasn't a CNA. I don't think it was a CNA course. But they were doing some course for, was it a CNA? I don't remember if it was a CNA. But honestly, don't know much about the CNA revision, you know, materials. Let's go on to chat. And see what they say. But as I say, you know, you can always find a lot of information, like, you know, as long as you have the topics, you can always come online and look up information. You can go onto YT and look up different videos as to how to, you know, become a CNA and the different skills that you need, and just work with information from there. And especially if the information is from a trusted, you know, source, just go ahead and just read broad in that aspect. But regarding the CNA revision materials, I'm seeing something here. Yeah, I think it was the same book, you know. I think I have a book with something like this that I saw someone was doing regarding like the care of the older adult, basic anatomy, communication. You know, it was a textbook, personal care, like taking care of their fingernails, doing a little diabetes check and all of those things, bed making. So as I say, as long as you're able to cover all different areas and you just study and be, you know, just study broadly, then that should be good. I see where it says Mosby's Essential for Nursing Assistant is one of them. Oh, the textbook that the person was using is the Nursing Assistant Essentials of Holistic Care. That's the one. It's a blue book, and there is a elderly person and somebody in a white that was using that was taking care of that person. So you can always go ahead. Let me see if I can pin it. And then they have free online resources here. CNA practice test at cna.plus. How can I do this? I'm gonna screenshot it, and I'm gonna try to put it somewhere. I'm gonna put it on my page and just label it as yeah, but this is from chat that I just got it from. But the Nursing Assistant Essentials of Holistic Care, the person was doing that course, and that's the book, you know, because they were asking me some information. That's the textbook that they were using. So I don't know if it's one of those standardized textbook that they have or are not. So all right, so I'll go ahead and put it on my page shortly, and you can just go ahead and look at it. All right. Yes, like when women put on weight. I guess Charles, I talk about self-care. Yes, a lot of times, you know, women tend to put on a little bit of weight, especially nurses, and when we're on night shift and all, you know, because our little clock is like going backwards. Yeah, we tend to do the opposite of everything else, you know, of everyone else. So everything else that we're doing, we do it at night. You understand? Because night becomes day for us. So we eat at night, and, you know, we put on weight at night too. So, yeah. Hey, Shanique, thank you for tuning in. Michael, Nutrition by Andrea. Welcome, welcome. Melissa or Marissa. Yeah, so you definitely can look at those books, and they have free online resources for practice exams. It says nurseaidtesting.com. So nurseaid, let me try to pin this thing. Why is it making that noise? Okay, so all of a sudden my phone, it decided, oh, because I put my phone to go on to sleep at 9. Yeah, because if you don't do that, you know, you find yourself on TikTok for the whole night. So I have to put my phone on timeout. All right, so that's it. So CNA Essentials, CNA revisions. Okay. All right, so I am pasting it on my page now. I don't remember seeing it. So you can look at it and just save the link or go on the website and just look at some of the things. But as I say, just study broadly, get the information. Should be pretty basic in terms of, you know, just some things that we would normally do on a daily basis. And then from there, just make sure it's more focused on the elderly or the patient population that you're dealing with. All right, so CNA. Nurses. Okay, so I put it up there so you can look at it. Wakanda, how are you doing? Kiki Mick. Welcome. Oh, that's Keela. How are you doing, Keela? Yeah, so definitely look at that. Marcia, Lindo, Lati J, welcome in the house. How are you, Lati? Are you off today? All right. No, you're at work? Okay. What unit you work on, Lati? What state you in, Telly? What state you in again, Lati? There was someone who was asking me something about the rates in Maryland, Virginia. Yeah. What state are you in? Maryland. You're in Maryland. Okay. What's the average rates down there? Or what's the rate looking like? I have somebody who was asking some things about that. I think they were more specific to Virginia though. Okay. Oh, they do it by the years of experience. Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hi, Stacy Ann. How are you? Thank you for following. Joy 45 to 60. Okay. Okay. That's not a bad rate. That's not a bad rate. I think there was someone who was saying Virginia pays really well. So thanks for that. And Lati is a nurse from Jamaica. So she has some years of experience as well. But she says the range is about 45 to 60. To 60 there. What computer system do you use for charting, Lati? Hey, Stacy Ann. That's how I used to spell my name, Stacy Ann, until I was, in grade 6 when I was supposed to do my, what we call GSAT. I was supposed to go into high school, and that's when I realized my name don't have an E in it. But I tell you the amount of beating I get when I was growing up because I was missing that E. Oh, Lord. Yeah, man. It was a couple of years ago I saw this. My mom had this diary, a black diary that had some little lines in it. Yeah, it ruled up real nice. And I was looking through it and I realized I was writing my name, STACY-ANN. But my name was actually with an E. But may I tell you, the amount of slapping I get when I was younger for that E. and only to realize never put it on the birth certificate, but that's another story. Yeah. But yeah, I'm doing good. I am doing good. I'm doing good. I'm Mark Kelly. Welcome, welcome to the live. Thank you guys for liking up the live. All right. Thank you for liking up the live. All right. We did talk about the apartment. We did talk about apartment. We talk about public transportation. Mine was the opposite. I used to spell it without the E. Okay. Good night, Imar. I am doing good. I'm doing good. How about you? I am doing good. Okay. Okay. Okay, nice. And we did talk about the charting systems that a lot of persons use. And I did touch on a little bit of a self-care and communication for you. Oh, you know what I'm going to talk about? Charting. We're going to touch on a little bit of a charting for your notes, because that's something that I always like to talk about, because I don't know if probably because me used to writing on paper why I am so detailed, but I always tell myself that I work too hard for my license, and in healthcare you don't want to be this a situation where the simplest of things, you know, make you lose your license. So I always try to make sure I'm documenting well, not documenting too much now to send me go prison back way, you know, but you know, just documenting whatever events have taken place at the time when I'm seeing those patients, or when I'm communicating with any providers, nurses, you know, just try to be very objective, specific at the time, you know, so that way years later I have that information there. But a lot of times, you know, we don't do, because we use the computer system, you find that a lot of persons, I don't know if they just feel as though examination of the patient is not priority anymore. I don't know, but you might realize that a lot of persons don't do that. Yeah, they just go by, you know, what the doctor order, and that's it. So I feel as though a lot of times, you know, us as nurses, we start acting as, what do you call it now? You're just like the doer. You know, you're just going out there and just doing this because somebody tell you to do it, you're doing it. You don't have the reason, the rationale for doing it. We're not that proactive when it comes down to doing certain things, and so, you know, we have to wait until somebody tell us to do it. But when it comes down to documentation, even though we're doing whatever, a lot of times we're documenting, and we're not documenting enough to protect ourselves or license, as well as for, you know, for patient safety. But, you know, it's always good to make sure we're documenting our subjective data, what the patient says, what the objective information, whatever you find, you make sure you document it. As I say, when it comes on to your patients, because you're using the computer system, what I always try to do is, when I do get shift report or a shift change, what I try to do is always write a little brief note. Find the note section in your chart and put in something to say this is how the patient looks to you. Because a lot of times, because the computer is set up in a way where you're just clicking, oriented and alert, click. You know, chest, you look at lungs, clear, bowel sounds, you know, present, and all you're doing is just tick, 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 and we get into this habit of tick, 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 tick. But I like to go ahead and just write, you know, free text, how the patient looks. Is the patient sitting up talking to me? You know, does the patient look drowsy? Things like that. Does the patient look pale? Because a lot of times you might not be able to capture it on the tick, 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 tick. You understand? When you're doing your assessment or your documentation. And the last thing you want is to say that the skin looks normal, but then this patient either looks cyanotic, the patient is just white. And we're not talking about, like, you know, but patient is just looking so pale and we didn't capture it properly. And when you do print out this note, a couple months from now, you don't remember what we were talking about in terms of the patient's presentation. But you can always have your little note in your own little language to say, okay, when I go there, this patient had one leg and the patient was just looking pale. The patient looked cyanotic. The patient had like ecchymosis on the right hand. And you capture all of those in one little paragraph. And that's it. You understand? And then you can go ahead and do your tick, 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 tick in the assessment findings for that. So that's one thing that I always practice, and who I get the patient from, because not all the time you find nurses assigning themselves to the patient. So definitely if you get it from Nurse Jones, you're right to get it from Nurse Jones, because sometimes you have some nurses who do have the patients for the 8 hours, the 12 hours, and their name cannot be found on any part of the chart because sometimes they're not documenting anything. They haven't assigned their name to the chart. So make sure you go ahead and just write down who you got the patient from. And especially sometimes you can't even remember their name. That's why I walk with my little, my little notepad. Because while they give me a report, or I know that I'm getting a report from John, I write down John's name in my little book and the date. And then all the patients I'm getting from John. So that way, even if the shift is busy and even if I'm running behind, I can still stay back and document that at 7 o'clock, I did receive the patient and the patient looks alive and well. Or if I receive a patient, the patient is dead, we can say that I got the patient, But by right, if the patient looking a certain way, you and John supposed to go over there and look, because we're supposed to be doing bedside reports. So if the patient is not looking up, sitting up and looking at me and be like, yes, nurse, or whatever, then that's going to be John's problem. John going to have to deal with that part before him leave him shift. You understand? So it's always good to go ahead and eyeball your patient. And if the patient look like they're sleeping or something else is going on, just find out from the nurse that is leaving, what has been happening, what has been done. Make sure them document something. If it's a case where they need to reach out to a provider, let them go ahead and reach out to the provider. Because as I say in another video, you don't want to be a case where, their problem from day shift or from night shift becomes your problem at the beginning of your shift. Because that is the worst thing way to start off your shift. To be having issues from the previous shift and the doctors now getting on top of your nerves with everything else that has been going on that wasn't done. You understand? So definitely look at that. Hi, Jamaican flag. Jamaican. What is the best car to get in terms of affordability and durability? One thing I always say is go onto, it depends on where you're going. And the other thing is, I always say go onto YT and look at different vehicles and make sure you're putting in 4-wheel. I'm always into 4-wheel drive because, I don't know, I like off-road vehicles, let's just say. So I'm always into 4-wheel drive because they're always going to be good with the snow. I'm a Subaru person. I've had Subaru for a long time, never had any issues with it. So in terms of that, and when I went on YT to look up, as it relates to the snow and all, it had really good reviews. So I stick to it in terms of safety. I did stick to it. In terms, and they last really long. You understand? Because I had one for 5 years and God bless if me change anything on it. Never change anything on it. You understand? The brakes and everything work perfectly fine. I tell you something, I did put miles on that. So you have to just go online and look at different vehicles, compare them, look at what you are able to afford, and then from there. But as I say, 4-wheel drive, if you're gonna, even if you're not taking a SUV, get the sedan in the Subaru. I'm not advertising for Subaru, but I'm just saying Subaru is a really good car, and as I say, with the 4-wheel drive. But if you have any other option, down in your list, anyone that is listening here, you can always go ahead and just leave it down that side for Miss Jamaican as well. You understand? In terms of affordability right now, you can get cars. You can get cars for what? You can get probably a sedan from probably like 20s, 25, I guess. So The parts are very expensive, but how often do you change? You understand? And that's why I say, do not come over here and take up on yourself and go buy a used car. Not saying used cars are not, reliable, but me just say, like, if me I come to a new country and my company is gonna assist me with getting a vehicle, me not taking no used car. Me need something that is gonna last me for a long time. You understand? So as I say, the parts for Subaru are gonna be expensive, but when are you gonna be changing? If you do get one, just think of it that the car is gonna be under warranty for a long time. You have your insurance that is gonna help with certain things as well. But in terms of the parts itself, you won't be changing anything on that vehicle for a while. You won't be changing anything. As I say, it took me 5 years, and I was driving in snow with that vehicle. You understand? I was driving in snow with that vehicle, and it was roughly 5 years when I actually changed my brake pads, and I never miss a servicing. Never miss a servicing. You understand? So it did its time. You understand? So if I would do it over again, I would go back for another Subaru. And that was in and as I said, I had Subaru from before, and I never had any issues with it, and people were saying the same thing. Subaru parts are expensive, but when you get the car, how often are you going to be changing parts on that vehicle? So unless you go and buy something that is used, and even if you do get one that has low mileage, there's a possibility you're not going to be spending that much. But as I say, if you do have the opportunity for you to get a new vehicle through your company, the company's assistance, go ahead and get something that is going to be reasonable. Make sure that you're planning for the next 5 years, because you're saying that, okay, then during that time you're working on your goals. So you don't want it to be a case where you're changing a car every second. You want it to be a case where when you just come to the state, whatever vehicle you have, it is something that is going to still last you for 5 years, even if you have 8 kids, within that time period. Yeah, but at least, if you get a regular SUV, you should be able to hold you, your husband, your wife, and 3 kids around the back comfortably. You understand? For 5 years. So just think about that. But yeah. All right. Do you have kids? Jamaican flag, Jamaican? Do you have any kids? Because that is something you have to just take into consideration. Because when I moved here, I never had any kids. But, I know I wanted kids, and I wanted it to be a case where I wasn't going to be changing my vehicle 2 years in, because I'm still transitioning. Let's just see, I haven't fully settled in. So I never wanted to be a case where I'm going to try to get a bigger car or something like that. So I just go ahead and choose something that is going to work for a couple of years. So, and it wasn't a case where the car was making any noise or anything. It drives smooth, and it was just feeling comfortable just the same. So, but to each his own, yeah, so just look at that, and look at the prices, and the down payment. And as I say, depending on your recruiting company, a lot of times you might not have to pay down anything that much, especially if they know that, if they're working with that company, if they are working with that company as well. So take that into consideration. All right. Hi, Nikki. Welcome. MT Girl Graphics. Thank you so much for tuning in. Smoothie 92. Melody Ross. Kevin Henry. Thank you so much for tuning in. Can I have you guys just go ahead and just double tap the screen a little bit? Let's go to 5,500. Just need 100 hearts, likes. Yeah. And that's it. Yeah. Oh, it's still 11 o'clock. It's 11 o'clock. The apartment prices are taking me out. I feel most of the salary will go to that. So yeah, apartments. What state are you going to, if you don't mind, Jamaican? The prices are gonna be, Maryland. Okay, okay. Yeah, so the prices are gonna be a little bit high, and especially depending on what you're looking for, you might find out that the prices are gonna be a little bit high. But as I say, that is just something you have to invest in. You have to spend a little bit more money if you want to go home to a place that is going to be very comfortable. Because as I say, the last thing you want is to have a home that, or an apartment you're not comfortable at, and a bed that you're not comfortable in when you're transitioning, because you have other things out there to deal with. You're gonna have so many other things out there to deal with, and the only thing you want to do is you want to be in an apartment where either the floor you get heating on the floor because the place is so cold, the floor is warm, or you're in a place where you have garage, you're in a place that the bed is so comfortable you just want to stay in. You look outside and it looks nice, and you're not depressed and all them stuff there, because transitioning, yeah, man, you're gonna feel a little bit alone and depressed for a few days, few months, probably a year. You understand? You're gonna feel as though you want to go back home every weekend. Yeah. So you're gonna have to spend a little bit more. You realize that the places are gonna be a little bit pricey. You just have to spend a little bit more money to make sure that you're comfortable during that time. But as I say, just make sure you do not sign something, especially if you haven't seen the place in person. Just make sure you're not signing a contract for 2 years because you realize that the lease is gonna be a little bit cheaper. You understand? If you have a company that is not rushing you into getting an apartment, at that time, you have the opportunity to go ahead and see the place, meaning you'll go to the state and you probably can stay in a hotel for 1 month. It might cost you a little bit more, but if you're able to do that and then you visually see the place in person, then you can go ahead and say you're going to sign a 12 months lease or all. But if it's going to be a case where you're not going to be able to see it, I wouldn't encourage nobody to go ahead and sign a 12 months lease, because, you might just don't like the place. The carpet might just have dog hair. The carpet might just have bed bug. A lot of things. So just be careful, when it comes on to the lease. Do not sign anything if you're not able to see it, or if you don't have somebody that you trust being able to go there and see it and say, okay, then this is what the place looks like. And then from there, you can make that decision. But if you are able to see it and you're comfortable with it and everything about it, then definitely go ahead and sign your 12 months. I'm going to say 2 years either. Do your 12 months, and then if you want, you can renew it for 12 more months. But I'm going to say sign a lease for 2 years, any at all. You understand? So that's just that on that. Hi, Chef Chris, Pamela Stevens. Thank you so much for tuning in. Star Bright, welcome, welcome. Johnson, welcome, welcome. Yeah, but as I say, I did talk about this in a little bit more detail in another live I did, and I uploaded the entire live, the TikTok live, to my YT page at ThinkNursing, so you can go over there and look at it and just listen. A lot of persons were asking so many questions that day, so it was a really packed live with transitional questions, nursing transition questions regarding vehicles, the different visas that has been issued, and how to go about with, completing your contract and all. So a lot of things that we talk about that day. So you can always check that out when you get a chance. All right. All right. Well, folks, it's 11 o'clock. Don't know what time it is for you. Probably 12 o'clock for some persons. It's 11 o'clock for me. So my eyes are getting a little bit tired. So I am going to go. And I did say I was going to do a live tomorrow at 5. And how I say I was going to do that live is because I was trying out something on TikTok. But it had me create an actual date. So I'm going to try to show up for that live tomorrow. I was going to try to do one for Monday, but I'm going to do the live tomorrow and then from there. So if you have any other questions, you can always go ahead and, you know, you can always go ahead and come on and ask any question. You can also go ahead and inbox me, DM me questions. And if it is something that I will respond on the live, I'll do that. And I go ahead and text back to persons as well. So if you have anything else, you can always reach out to me. And then from there, I'll try to answer them based on my experience, you know, as a nurse here. All right. Not a problem, Jamaican. Not a problem. Always a pleasure. All right. So definitely. All right. But thank you guys. Oh, seriously? We're not going to just give me the 200 likes. So we could go to 6,000. Just the 200. So, all right. All right. So, yeah. So I will see you guys tomorrow. And then from there, you know, we'll chit chat. And as I said, just inbox me if you have any questions, any concerns or anything. And then from there, thank you so much for those likes. From there, we will, you know, continue to have a wonderful time. As I say, I just share my content here because as a nurse, when I was transitioning from Jamaica, I never really had that much person to ask. And sometimes I just feel as though if you find somebody that is from your own culture, explaining certain things and telling you their experience, you might feel a little bit better. Because when a recruiting company come and tell you that, oh, this is what we're doing, it's always going to look nice on paper. But when you have somebody talking about their experience, it's a little bit different. And especially if you're able to relate to that person culturally, I find that you will benefit a little bit more from what is being offered or what is being said. Not saying that what I'm saying is gospel because you have other persons out there with, you know, different experience. But I'm just saying based on my experience, it is something that you can learn from. And it will help you along the way as well. So that's just it. All right. Anyways, I'm gonna go. I will see you guys in another live on another day. And remember, if you haven't followed us yet, go ahead and follow me and me will follow you back. All right. Until then, I will see you guys. All right. Bye.